Alrighty, everybody. Looks like it is about that time to get started. Let me just do a quick mic check. Looks like we should be good on it. We'll give it a quick sec for everybody to jump in. But first and foremost, just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. Today, we are here to talk about how to market your upcoming holiday events on Facebook and Instagram, something that can definitely be a bit of a challenge with all of the crazy things going on at the end of the year. So, we'll be diving into some specifics of how to market everything from Christmas, holiday related events to New Year's Eve events to hopefully have you walking away here today with a good understanding of a strategy that you can be taking to best sell out and help promote your upcoming holiday events. I always love for these sessions to be interactive, so if you're jumping in a little bit later, feel free to drop questions in the chat. I'm always happy to backtrack and just make sure that everybody is having a good understanding of what's going on. So, before we jump in, everybody, I'd just love to introduce myself. My name is Sam Jameson with the Eventbrite Boost CX team. I have been, over the past 3 to 4 years, helping event creators of all different sizes, all different types of events, best use the power of Facebook and Instagram marketing to bring people together, sell out their events. And today I want to share some of the successful strategies that I found that you can adapt these and best use the learnings that we've had to best sell out your upcoming holiday events. So, jumping into it, to give you all a little bit of a brief agenda, we will be talking about, what are different marketing strategies or what are the elements that go into performance of how to best run campaigns for the holidays. Then we'll be diving into showing you some specific examples along the way of other previous high performers. And then we'll actually jump into the Eventbrite Boost platform to show you all the different marketing tools that you can be using to best actually create and replicate these similar types of campaigns yourself. So, jumping on, there are normally all four main variables that come into play whenever we are running an ad campaign. So the first one of those variables is, what's the type of campaign I'm running and where exactly am I running it? If we could boil this down to the most simple question, we just honestly want to empathize with our ticket purchaser and ask ourselves, if we were the person that was going to be signing up or buying a ticket for this upcoming event, are we actually in a position that we would purchase right now? Or is there a different timeline down the horizon where we might be more likely to purchase? Second, you generally always want to be considering your targeting mix. So are we, both going after brand new people to get people that aren't familiar with our business or our organization in the pipeline? And then are we also remarketing to people that maybe bought from us in the past for previous years that are more likely to attend our event, or remarketing to people that interact with things like our social media accounts? After that, the budget is pretty much tied in with the scheduling, but we just want to make sure that we're not blowing all of our budget on paid ads if we're in a time period where people aren't that likely to purchase. And then lastly, what's the ad creative that we're using? Is it actually teasing what the experience is going to be like and giving the person a little bit of a snapshot of, what might it be like to attend this event? Can it get their imagination going and so forth? So, first to briefly kind of talk about the different campaign types and schedules, normally when it comes to event marketing, we're generally running two different types of campaigns. So, the first one on the left, if you're familiar with the Facebook lingo, you might have heard link click or conversion. Basically, this is a fancy term for saying we're running an ad that goes straight over to your ticketing pages. Now, these are the best ads to run when there is urgency for your customers to purchase. So, if we're talking about a New Year's Eve event, for example, this would probably be the best ad to run in that last week leading up to the event. But if we're at this point, early November, people are first, they got to get through Thanksgiving, then they got to get through Christmas or any of the other kind of later December holidays, and then get to New Year's. That might not be the best campaign to run at that point in time. So, whenever you're in a period where you don't think your customers are likely to purchase, but you want to build social proof, engagement, while also making it accessible for those that might want to buy, that's where we recommend the Facebook RSVP campaigns. So you might have seen those before where you could hit interested or going. They're fantastic as they help you build up audiences that you can remarket to down the road. But if you're using Eventbrite's embedded checkout with the add to Facebook feature, people can also buy without even leaving Facebook. So think of that as kind of the best of both worlds. Option on the left is if there are really people that are down to purchase at this point in time. If not, or you're kind of on the fence, run something like an RSVP ad. Now, getting to the target audience mix, we'll show you some actual examples of what other creators have used here, but just a couple general things you want to consider. One is, am I making sure that I'm diversified, or am I putting all of my eggs in one basket or one audience? If we only target one audience with our ad and it does well, that's a great story at the end of the day, but if it doesn't do well, we don't have anything else that might perform better. So we just want to make sure that we're testing multiple audiences, using the best data sources we have available, and that's something that our platform makes it very easy to do as well, such as targeting people that bought from you in the past or going after people that are similar audiences that are sometimes hard to create or use in a platform like Ads Manager, and then also make sure we're mapping, our targeting with our objective. So if we were maybe running an ad for a New Year's event right now, sending people straight to the ticketing pages, we might want to focus on remarketing to people that bought last year instead of spending a ton of money going after brand new people. So, diving into New Year's events, these generally are events that have relatively late buying sales curves. And from a psychological standpoint, this is to be expected as, first we have Thanksgiving, then we normally have Christmas, and then we have New Year's coming after Christmas in a really short span. A lot of us, I feel, are so mentally focused on jumping from one holiday to another that it can often be kind of psychologically difficult for us to plan out super far in advance if we're not traveling or anything like that, what exactly we might be doing for a New Year's event. So generally from our experience, what we've seen for people that throw New Year's events, they generally see a small kind of trickle of sales leading up at least starting kind of mid to late November, really starting to pick up in December, and really in that last week before the event, we see a really huge volume of sales. So when it comes to running campaigns for New Year's Eve events, generally what we see is most customers start really purchasing in December with heavy sales after Christmas. So if you are advertising a New Year's event, you just want to make sure that you're conserving enough budget to actually advertise in December when people are actually starting to think about New Year's events. From a targeting standpoint, we might want to target people interested in nightlife if you're throwing a nightlife type of event, or if you have a specific artist or genre of music, target people that are interested in those types of events, and then also make sure that we maybe remarket to people that have gone to your events in the past or people that interact with your social media and your events. And lastly, budget. Just make sure that you're conserving budget for December and building engagement if you want to advertise earlier. And then for your ad creatives, try to prioritize using a little bit of video content that maybe showcases, what was your previous New Year's event like, or what might it be like if I am to attend this event myself. So just going over a couple examples that we've had here. This was from New Year's Eve parties. They've been running some fantastic New Year's Eve events for the past couple of years. They use this platform as well to promote some of their events. So we can see that this campaign that they ran here, they made a really good return on it. So it ran $18 back for every dollar they were spending on advertising, which is definitely a standout example. This might not be, theoretically possible for all of us to get something like this, but it was a really good example. They started their campaign pretty much really in late November. So they weren't really focusing a lot on spending a lot of budget, at least at a point like we are right now in the year where we still have Thanksgiving leading up. So in this example, they did a great job focusing on advertising after Thanksgiving and starting everything in November. They also used a couple different audiences, so targeting people that were similar to those that bought in the past and similar to those that visited their website. So they didn't put all their eggs in one basket, and they tried a couple different target audiences here. And then they also had a remarketing campaign going, which this one they got around $25 back for every dollar they spent, which is to be expected, as people that are in these remarketing audiences probably are more likely to purchase than people that haven't heard of you before. But they targeted people that interacted with their social media accounts and people that ended up visiting their website and past purchasers essentially. So going over kind of a target audience mix that you might use is you could maybe use a 3 mix target audience, and we'll show you exactly how to build these a little bit later, but maybe having, one audience, the interest that helps you go after people interested in artists or the type of event that you are marketing, and then maybe including something like nightlife, kind of contextual to the type of event that you are throwing. Then we want to make sure that we have some remarketing audiences, so maybe targeting people that interact with your Facebook page, your events, people that visit your ticketing pages, and then people that bought from you in the past. And then we might want to spice it up with one extra audience helping us go after people that maybe are similar to those that bought from you in the past, or maybe target a different interest audience or something like that. So we're kind of hitting everything we possibly can, not putting all our eggs in one basket, and trying a couple different sources here. Now moving over to more kind of general holiday events, so like Christmas related events, ice skating events, Christmas light events, things like that. Generally these events, and especially ones that have recurring holiday events, so they're not just happening once on New Year's Eve, but we might have multiple events throughout December or something like that, generally we find people purchase a lot more evenly for these types of events compared to something like New Year's where we see a huge spike in sales kind of getting right towards the end of it. So generally, when it comes to advertising these more Christmas or recurring types of holiday events, generally most customers start purchasing in maybe mid to later, maybe beginning to mid of November, with then heavier sales actually occurring after Thanksgiving. So a lot of the customers that I work with that throw recurring events, Christmas themed events, this is now the period where they've actually really started to pick up their advertising efforts. But when we were advertising last month, we really didn't see the best results, but we focused on engagement as we didn't quite have the expectation people are going to be purchasing for Christmas events when we're not even done with Halloween yet, even though Walmart pretty much stocks the shelves with Christmas stuff before Halloween even ends. And then for your targeting, a lot of times if you're throwing an event that's family friendly, we might want to target something like the demographic parents. That's a fantastic targeting option to use, or targeting people interested in holiday interests, and then make sure we're also using a remarketing audience as well. So for budget, we generally want to reserve a good amount of budget so that we can really pick up advertising in early to mid-November and then continue those efforts in through December till our event series ends up ending. So looking at this was an example from the Lincoln Park Zoo out in Chicago. They had ran a really fantastic upcoming campaign for their holiday event. This one was occurring on January 3rd, so this was actually a ways out. But you could see that they actually started advertising early November. But what I really like about this style of campaign was they focused on an RSVP campaign. So they knew, for the most part, people probably aren't going to be purchasing for this event or really far out, but they actually did drive a lot of sales. So they spent around 250 on this, made around 2,000 back in ticket sales, which is still a fantastic return. But they approached setting up the campaign with the expectation the event's really far out. We maybe aren't that likely to actually drive ticket sales at the moment. So let's focus on something like an event response campaign that helps us build an engaged audience that we can then remarket to later, but it still makes it accessible for those that would like to purchase, which we could see we got a lot of purchases from this as well. And a target audience mix, pretty similar to actually what we looked at in that past slide as well, but maybe instead of targeting people interested in the genre of music or nightlife, if it's a family friendly event, we might target something like parents or Christmas and holiday season, Christmas lights, etc. And just briefly touching on the ad creative is a really important part of what you have going on when you're setting things up. We can have the best targeting in the world, but if people don't really find the content that we're advertising really attractive or attention grabbing, odds are we might just scroll past it. We need to keep in mind that we have very, very small and limited attention spans nowadays. So for the most part, you generally really need to be trying to use video content, especially branded video content always works a lot better, branded images or videos, to try to actually explain to people, what might it be like if I attend this event. So I really like this one for this New Year's Eve party, where they basically had kind of a compilation of last year's events, letting everybody know what's going on, so people could actually get a little insight to see what might it be like to attend this event. And I love this one on the right that we have here, which is a recurring event, basically kind of an adventure park for families to come, parents to take good photos, always using something that basically, we're targeting parents, showing people a couple cute pictures of kids. It gets their imagination going of, I'd love to take pictures of my kids at this awesome place. So you always just want to keep in mind that you're kind of playing on people's emotions when you are using your ad creative. So you want to be giving people context and helping them imagine what would it be like if I were to actually attend this event? So I love these are two good examples. Videos are always prioritized, but you can work with images if you only have those. And one advanced tactic that you can do is if you are setting up ad campaigns, let's say, and you only have one upcoming event or something like that, you can always set up one campaign to help you go after prospects, or what I mean by that is just targeting new people. So people in interest audiences or lookalikes that maybe don't know about your brand or your business. And then maybe have a separate campaign where you spend a fraction of your budget on remarketing. As we know, maybe these people are already likely to buy. They saw it, but they just weren't in a good position. So we just need to spend a little bit of money to remind them. But then we could maybe spend like 75, 80% of our budget really focusing on getting new people through the door. So that's an advanced tactic. You don't necessarily have to do that, but with a lot of big, especially people with really big budgets for their holiday events, it sometimes can be something wise to do if you just want a little bit more control over what's going on. And then generally, in terms of what we found of creators actually using Boost, creators that tend to use Boost generally on average sell around 16% more tickets compared to people using Facebook Ads Manager. And the main reasons for that is one, we just make it a lot easier to incorporate these difficult remarketing audiences, such as targeting your past purchasers, which have a substantially higher likelihood of purchasing from all the data that we've seen, targeting people that interact with your Facebook events, your Facebook pages, but also tapping into things like smart audiences, which are Eventbrite specific audiences that you can use to target people in your area that have purchased for other similar events. So basically just jumping into it, to give you a little context on what Eventbrite Boost is, for those of you that have been Eventbrite marketers for a long time, we've basically taken some of the existing marketing tools, such as the add to Facebook and email functions, and combined it with the paid Instagram and Facebook advertising platform. I come from a company called Toneden, and we were acquired previously last November by Eventbrite. So basically, this is the marriage of our Facebook and Instagram ad automation technology with Eventbrite's marketing platform to level your advertising up to the next level and to basically allow you to access all of this in one easy place. So just to give you a little context on where you can find this, it's going to be in that marketing tab up in the top left. So if you go to the manage my events section where you normally build your events, just look out for the new marketing tab. And I briefly just want to talk about a couple different features in here, as I know not everybody has substantially big paid budgets to work with. So I just want to briefly touch about all the different things that you can and you should be doing in terms of marketing your holiday event. So if there's any takeaway, I'd highly encourage you, as something free and only takes a couple minutes, use that add your event to Facebook function. And the reason this is so important is, especially something like a New Year's Eve event, where people probably aren't thinking about that honestly till mid to late December or maybe after Christmas. You want to start building social proof and engagement now in November. So by publishing your event to Facebook, people can easily RSVP. So from the user perspective or your customer's perspective, if they RSVP to that event, they're going to get notifications. They won't forget about it. They could easily purchase by going to that Facebook event. But additionally, if they end up visiting that Facebook event, you as the marketer can actually easily remarket to them. So let's say, for example, you have a couple thousand people that visit that Facebook event, you can easily remarket to them down the road. Then also the email campaign function tools. It is always a very wise approach to be leveraging email marketing alongside Facebook and Instagram marketing. Generally, from what we found, the more places that somebody is actually being aware and seeing your different types of events, normally the better performance that we're effectively going to see. But the main thing that we want to talk about today is advertising on Facebook and Instagram. So let's actually jump into the platform and show you how to create these campaigns that we were talking about so that you can get it going for your holiday events. So when you jump into Eventbrite Boost for the first time, you are basically going to see this orange looking graph here in this section. We call this the sales curve, and this is actually a plot of how on average your customers end up purchasing for your events. So if you want recommendations on what type of campaign we think you should run based on how your customers purchase, all you need to do is use the drop down to choose your upcoming Eventbrite event, and then go ahead and hit the blue button to jump into the creation process, and we'll actually recommend a campaign that we think you should run. Now, I just love to share a little bit of context on, what types of campaigns you'd be focusing on. So kind of as we talked about in those earlier slides, the first one of getting people to buy tickets on the website, this is best when your customers are actually likely to purchase, but if they're not that likely to purchase, you might want to focus on something like an RSVP ad, especially if you were advertising a New Year's event and you're really far out, or you could focus on just general engagement related ads. So getting more views on a video promoting your event or an existing post or something like that. These two options will both help you build audiences that you could market to down the road if you're in a period where you know your customers aren't likely to purchase. But let's say, for example, we're advertising maybe a recurring holiday event starting on the 1st of December or something like that. We could run an ad going straight to the ticketing pages. So let's roll with that example here today. Now within this section, we're simply choosing what's the ad account we want to pay for the campaign with. So if we were going to spend a $50 budget on the campaign, that budget always gets billed back to whatever credit card or payment method is on file for that Facebook ad account, and then we'd simply choose the Facebook and Instagram page that we would want to run that ad from in this section. So we can go ahead and choose that. And if you know anything about Facebook pixels and you have multiple, you can choose which one you would like installed on your ticketing pages. If you don't know much about them, They simply are a mechanism for helping you remarket to people and tracking the revenue that you make from your ad campaigns. Don't even need to worry about it. We'll actually install it automatically for you. Now in this next section, we're simply entering in the location targeting for our event. Generally, in a lot of cases, you're either targeting the market or probably a 50-mile radius around where you are. Now, take into context of how far people would be willing to travel. 50 miles in Los Angeles sometimes can be like 3 hours or something like that, so you could always make the radius smaller. But normally we will pull in the location of your event automatically if you choose the Eventbrite event. Mine was targeting the entire United States, so that's why it was left blank. But normally you can either type in a specific location yourself, go ahead and pull that in that section. And then down towards the bottom, we're simply choosing the age range for our targeting. In most cases, you're probably choosing maybe all ages or 18 and up, or potentially 21 plus, especially if you're advertising maybe a New Year's event that has a specific age requirement, or for example, we're using something like liquor or alcohol in our ad creative. Facebook is pretty sensitive to that, so you probably would want to set the age range to 21 and up. Now this next section is where we will do the targeting for our ad campaign. We have two different versions. One for those of you that are a little bit more advanced, want more customization, but if you're basically just trying to cover all of your bases, do some A/B testing, make sure you're hitting remarketing audiences, we can easily switch this over to the version that everybody else normally sees when they jump in. So the first audience we would configure is what's called our interest audience. So this is interests, behaviors, or demographics, probably what you've worked with on Facebook before if you built ad campaigns. So let's say, for example, I was advertising a Christmas related event. Generally, what I recommend is go ahead and start typing out the general theme or topic of your event and just get a feel for what you could even target on Facebook. You unfortunately can't target everything as an interest, so the easiest and best practice to do is start off broad, just type out kind of something generally related to your event. So in this case, just kind of scrolling through, maybe people interested in Christmas lights. If I'm throwing a Christmas light event, I might type out Christmas one more time and see what we have here. Maybe just target people generally interested in Christmas. And then after you've entered a couple things in here, you can always use the drop down to get other similar suggestions. So, right now Facebook is suggesting other holidays and things like that, but maybe something like Christmas tree, that might be another good thing to add here in this section. Santa Claus. We also could use that parent demographic targeting. So if we wanted to go ahead and type out parents, we could target parents of children with all ages or people in a certain age range if your event attracts certain families with younger children. Fantastic type of targeting to use. And generally, there's no true correct number of interests to have in here. I'd always say just prioritize quality over quantity. These interests and demographic targets are pretty big within the Los Angeles area, so even if maybe I just left it as is right now, I might not need to add a lot more, but always just use your context. I've seen people run ad campaigns, just targeting people interested in Christmas and parents, and it does really well, but I've seen people go a little bit broader and it works as well. So more important thing is just really try to consider, for my holiday event, would it make sense to target people interested in Christmas lights? Or do I attract parents? Would it be interesting to target parents? And then down towards the bottom, we also are automatically including a remarketing audience. So that's something that you might not have done if you've built ads in Facebook before, as it can be a little challenging to do. But the reason that is important is people that interact with you on Facebook, Instagram, the Facebook events that you create, people that have bought from you in the past and purchased for other Eventbrite events, these individuals are so much more likely to actually purchase and attend your event than people that might just be interested in Christmas lights or Christmas, etc. So we're actually automatically including people that interact with your Facebook events and your Facebook page, but if you also have an Instagram account, you can include that as well. And if you have one of those Facebook pixels for remarketing purposes, you can also select that as well. And then we'll also automatically include anybody that's purchased from you on Eventbrite in the past as well. So guys, please feel free to let me know too if you have any questions on the targeting section. I know we're going a little bit quick through all of this today, but if there's anything I could further explain in greater detail, please feel free to just slow me down and let me know in the chat. But once we have gone ahead and configured our targeting, after that, we're simply setting the schedule and budget for our ad. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, we just want to make sure that we are considering, are we really in a time period right now that people are down to purchase for our event? If our event's a New Year's Eve event, it's early November, we know people don't even start really thinking about it till December. If we are going to run an ad right now in early November, we might not want to spend a ton of money on it, and we want to focus on engagement RSVP or engagement related ads instead of ads that really help drive people straight to ticketing pages to purchase. So just make sure that you're always contemplating, what's the timeline of when my event's happening? When do I expect a lot more purchases to actually start happening? And what can I focus on in the interim right now? If I still want advertising, maybe if I know people are unlikely to purchase at the moment, we'll focus on things like engagement style ads, maybe spend a small amount of our budget, and then as we get closer to that actual event, we'll really ramp up the advertising and can do things like, running an ad, sending people straight to the ticketing pages. Total or daily budget really doesn't matter. Total, if you're working with the fixed amounts, generally a little bit easier. If you want to fluctuate that budget day by day, total or daily spend works as well, but there's no performance difference whatsoever in what you end up doing here. And then once we are done with that, this is the section where we simply customize what does our ad creative actually look like. So generally we'll pull in the image associated with the Eventbrite event or the Facebook event that you end up selecting, but I'd highly encourage please try to add in your own video content if you have it, prioritize using that, or any good branded images. So let's say for example that was my default event. I wanted to pull in another one that I had right here. I can always actually add in more than one. So you could always A/B test one image, one video in the campaign. But again, try to use images or videos, prioritizing videos that actually showcase what the experience is going to look like, or pictures from the events in previous years, things like that, that actually give people insight into what might it be like to attend this event. How could I imagine or kind of put myself in their shoes? And then for the post text of the ad, this is what shows above the image or video that you add in. I highly encourage please delete the default text we pull in. That's just if you wanted a little bit of creative inspiration or wanted something easy, but I know you could write a more engaging copy than what we have built by the robot here in this section. Just generally you want to be indicating any sense of urgency, or if there's limited ticket capacities or people tickets are actually getting a price increase at a certain point in time, you want to make sure that you're addressing that somewhere in your ad, as people aren't necessarily going to be aware of that unless they go all the way to your ticketing pages and then later find out, oh, there's a ticket price increase, or quality of tickets is very, very limited at the moment. So make sure you address that and help foster a sense of urgency for people to purchase earlier, and make sure you're just generally addressing the who, what, and the why, essentially. Why would I want to attend this event? What's a little insight and what's actually going to be occurring? When's it happening and where's it happening? Just the main stuff you want to address. Link headline, this shows down below the image or video. You're generally just putting in the title of your event and potentially the location, something like that. Link description, you could probably just leave this as is. It doesn't show up on every network placement. It just kind of describes, why would I click that buy tickets button? And then if you are doing a ticketed event, I'd highly encourage use the buy tickets button. It's going to be the best one for you. It's best from a performance standpoint from what we've seen. But if you are doing a free event, you could use something like learn more, get showtimes. There's a couple different sign up, book now, a couple different alternative ones that you could use in this section. You can always A/B test any of these other components, but y'all, I'd highly recommend just stick to A/B testing the images or videos that you use in your ad campaign. And y'all, that pretty much is the last step of actually creating these ads. So just to kind of recap, in the first step, we just want to make sure that we're asking ourselves, are people actually likely to purchase at this point in time? If the answer is yes, we can run an ad going straight to the ticketing pages. If the answer is no, we might want to focus on these engagement style ads as well. The RSVP ones can be great, especially if you have a primary demographic on Facebook. Then when it comes to your target audiences, I'd say maybe try to have around 5 interests here, specifically related to the event you're advertising, and then we'll include the remarketing audiences automatically. For the schedule and budget, just kind of make sure that you're conserving a good amount of budget to advertise when your customers actually are likely to purchase, but you might be doing a little bit of advertising ahead of the game to just start fostering and building a remarketing audience, social proof, and engagement as well. And then for that design ad, just try to make sure that you're using good video content. You're not excessively A/B testing a lot of these other components. You're letting people know kind of the who, what, when, where, why, essentially, and giving them a little bit of context. And those are the main kind of tips that I would give to all you setting up these ad campaigns. So, y'all, that was pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about today. So I just love to thank you for taking the time. I know you have a lot on your plate as event creators, so I really appreciate you carving out the time out of your busy day to come here and talk about marketing your holiday events. Just before we jump off, if there's anybody in the chat that has any questions before we leave today, please feel free to just drop me a comment. I'd love to just address anything that was left unclear or any questions that you might have before we hop off today. Awesome. Well, that looks to be all. Thank you all so much for carving the time out on this busy Wednesday afternoon. I hope all of you have a blessed rest of your day and a fantastic rest of your week. Once again, everybody, my name has been Sam, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody.